Over the last several weeks, I've received phone calls, emails, and had in-person conversations with people who wanted to know how they could support the podcast. At the time, I did not have a platform, so that stimulated several weeks of research to create a platform where everyone could support the podcast and it would not be exclusive. So I found a way through Patreon. To learn more about this, visit patreon.com/sports mastery. Stay tuned. My name is DeShawn Fontleroy, and I am the creator of the Sports Mastery Podcast. As a young athlete, I didn't have anyone to guide me through the field of landmines that the student athlete faces. There was no one to talk about partying, peer pressure, and dating, and how all of these things could influence my performance and my future. There was no one to discuss overcoming fear, creating a legacy, defining my purpose, setting goals, mental toughness strategies, leadership, character development, or social dynamics. As a result, I struggled through much of high school and college, never really reaching my genetic and mental potential. Peer pressure, trying to fit in, partying, binge drinking, experimenting with recreational drugs were just a few things that held me back. Looking back, I wish I had someone that had been through that experience, someone who could have helped me navigate those landmines in a more mindful and constructive way. It would have saved me a lot of pain, misery, and hardship. Sports Mastery has been formulated to help the motivated but struggling student athlete to accomplish their hopes and dreams. But they can't do it alone. They need you, the parent, the mentor, the coach. This podcast provides the student athlete and their support team with the systems and strategies to help them break through all barriers and limitations. My goal with these audio podcasts is to interview parents and coaches and ask them questions about their journey in the realm of developing student athletes. I like for them to discuss their tips and strategies that they have learned over their time being a parent and coach. Ultimately, I like to create a platform to share information, experience, and dialogue to better help our student athletes. Financial support from you, the listeners, is what keeps this going. And the podcast really needs more funding to grow, not only to become financially stable, but to grow. A budget to interview guests globally instead of locally is one of my dreams. Because of the intimate nature of the interviews, in-person conversations are sometimes necessary. Your support will allow me to dedicate more time to working on the show. It will allow me to hire an audio editor, sound engineer, a videographer, publicist, and a social media manager. Put simply, the more you help out, the better quality of podcasts I can produce and develop for you. In addition, I'll be able to start producing monthly webinars on topics suggested by Patreon supporters. So to support the Sports Mastery Podcast, I've created a Patreon page. Go check this out at patreon.com/sports mastery. That's PATREON/sports mastery. Peace and blessing. Welcome back to the Sports Mastery Podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing parent Duante Barnett. This was an incredible interview. It was insightful, informative, hilarious, educational, and often sad at certain times throughout this episode. I promise you, there is a lot of nuggets that you as the parent and coach can learn from. I need you to be a little patient with me throughout this episode because I could have done a better job of letting Duante know to be in a quiet space and to also be wearing headsets. So you're going to hear some background noise. You're going to hear the tinny sound. It's going to go up and down at times, but I promise you, stay with us throughout this interview because this is going to provide some incredible insight from his experience that you could all find a nugget or two to learn from. And if you're listening to this, if you're a parent or coach, don't hesitate to reach out to me because I'm looking to interview specifically more parents on the Sports Mastery Podcast and also coaches. So I'm looking to share stories, insight, and experience. Stay tuned for today's episode. Thank you. Time and as I got older and once I got done playing, I got into working with athletes, personal training. I've done the whole gym industry from small box to big box. And then later I transitioned into working exclusively with athletes. And where that brought me to is the mental side of the game, where we're talking about sports psychology, mental toughness, how to carry yourself on and off the field. And this is kind of what has led to our conversation, because I put it out on Facebook how I was looking to start a conversation with parents and coaches. So do you have a son or daughter that plays sports right now?
So I'm a ref for WIAA. I've ref for Des Moines City and Maple Valley. And I coach 4 basketball teams for Covington Parks. So I've got a kindergarten co-ed team. I've got a first and second grade team. And then I've got a first and second kindergarten, third and fourth girls, and then 7th, 8th grade boys.
Okay, so now considering that, our first question, that I put out on social media, what is, maybe you and your wife, what's y'all's number one strategy that you use at home to develop discipline with your student athlete? And that's in terms of like how the things that you institute at home that they're going to be or act a certain way with discipline when you're not around.
Give you a little more backstory on me. My master's in athletic administration. I teach at Green River. I almost got the Wacom AD job. So this is exactly, it's funny you talk sports psychology. This is exactly what I'm doing. This is my avenue. I'm driven by ethics and discipline. I mean, we'll cover that more, but this is exactly the conversation I was fighting with my son about last week, to be quite honest. And it was, what is your end game?
Okay.
You're about to be 13 years old. What do you want to do with life? And I was like, well, I want to be a college athlete. And I was like, how are you going to be a college athlete if you're telling me you're quitting basketball because you don't like it? And he's like, well, I don't like basketball. I'm like, what don't you like about basketball? I mean, you don't like running? You don't like shooting? What? We have our relationships with our kids. We joke with them. I've given them a hard time, but, you didn't score last season, whatever. But he knows it's not serious. And he even said I've never given him a hard time about scoring. And so we started talking endgame. We talked at 2 different things.
Okay.
If you want to be a college athlete, and of course I go into more depth about what the argument was, but if you want to be a college athlete, you're going to be more successful as a 2-sport athlete coming out of high school than 1.
At least,
if
for
not
sure.
3. There's no reason for you to not be playing a winter sport and just be playing soccer and football. Basketball translates for both. You know what I mean?
I agree 100%. I think there was a couple of years ago, you saw that picture with, I think it was Coach Urban Meyer at Ohio State.
Stated.
Yes.
That they will take a 2-sport athlete over a 1-sport athlete because it shows a lack of diversified skills. Okay?
Yeah, I really believe that on his last championship team, they had like maybe 70 plus multi-sport athletes, as in terms of them playing in high school.
And my thing is I didn't go to college for athletics. It's not that I couldn't. It's just that I separated my shoulder. But what I did go to school for is a little bit harder. I had a full ride to Morehouse for academic scholarship. Room, board, and tuition.
Yep, yeah. That's in Atlanta.
The first black college. And the funny part about that one is I can remember saying I had a scholarship to black school, and the kids I went to school saying, well, that sounds scary. You're going to go to school with all black people? And I'm looking at them like I'm at Highline with all white people. What do you mean? Well, that sounds racist.
Right.
How can you go to all black schools? Don't you know that was the only, ignorance was rampant, if you know what I mean. But I got down there, and if you know anything about the down south compared to being up here and me being light skinned, I couldn't find a way to focus and go to class. We'll just put it that way. I had fun.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
One of the first schools that I was interested in was Jackson State, and I had actually went down there before enrolling at PSU.
Your parents are like, you're not doing that. And so for me, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I had a lot of support. Is like my counselor, he led me to believe that I was going to get full financial aid at the time. And I got 2 weeks into the term and they're like, we need another $8,000, so,
hey.
No,
I'm just laughing.
Go ahead.
I understand. I got down there on full scholarship and found out I had to pay for books. But hey, you know how that goes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like you talking to your son about discipline. It sounds like a big part of your discipline is having a plan going from A to Z. And I heard you mention end game, at the end of that.
So we say end game, I talked to him. I said, where do you want to be? And this is a real candid conversation, so I'm going to just keep it real with you. He started talking about, I don't like basketball. I'm like that because you're not the best, because you don't score, because you can't not like the game. I see you have fun, you know what I mean? So then we broke down the conversation. He finally said he likes soccer because it fits him. Well, you mean you're better at it? And so we had a different conversation. So I said, here's the thing you got to understand, sir, is there's 3, 4, and 5-star athletes. And if you're not a 4 or 5-star athlete, you're not going to play football. I mean, you might be able to find it. You might get lucky. You can get some college scholarship and, work out some financial aid. But you talking about you want to get paid? You got 2 options. You can either be that 4 or 5-star athlete, or you can be a 4.0 student. He said, what do you mean by that? Hold on.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it helps to
we'll
be
get
both.
there, right? If you're a 3.0, 3-star student, but you got a 4.0, guess what? You can still get into Stanford. Guess what?
Yes, you
can still get into these more elite schools. That, getting back to not so much my story, but I was going to go to Bodine. I was going to go to Cole College, these liberal schools that are D2 and D1, 2A, because I could get into them.
Right.
I got accepted to Princeton and Harvard, man. You know what I mean? So you can play football at college level if you have a 4.0. You can play college at the football level.
Yes, you can.
I mean, the college level if you got a 3.5. And you've taken the right courses, and you've hit that. I think you got to get what? It's 3,700, so like an 1,800 on your SAT. Back in our day, I had a 1,480. The kids were, that's nothing. You can get 2,100. I said, well, back in my day, it was 1,600 on your SAT. So 1,480 meant, I can go wherever I want. And so it's about discipline, and it wasn't even just about the athletic part. So, we're fighting with your kids, and so they change stories, and he's 12, almost 13, right? So then it was, well, I want to be a game developer. Now, Dad teaches IT. I teach web, database, all that, right? HTML, CSS, SQL, Python. That's what I teach right now at Green River. So I said, son, your science grade's a D. Gaming's a computer science, right? So I didn't know that. Well, what did you think it was? Well, I didn't know. So then it was, so what's your plan? You just think you're going to get better? And, I wasn't trying to be harsh with him, but when we had this conversation the first time, it was like, so did you get better in football or did you get worse? He's like, well, I feel like I got better. I was like, why? Did you get faster? Did you run a faster time? Did your stats go up? Did you get more playing time? He's like, nah, I just got better. I said, well, did you ask your coach? He's like, nah. I said, so basically you sound entitled, son, because what happened was the kids that were on academic probation, when they weren't on academic probation, you stopped playing. And then the last game of the season, the coach asked you if you knew how to run the reverse, and you said no, so you didn't get a carry. To show me that speed. You know what I mean? And so it was,
right.
A lot of people, you're being cruel. I'm not being cruel. And a lot of this ties back to something else we'll talk about later, which were limitations, but it's drive. I came from an environment playing for CIY, living on 3rd and Yesler, 8th and Madison, till about middle school. And then when I moved out with my dad, we were in damn near Tukwila, which if you know anything about these areas, ain't the greatest, ain't the worst, but it ain't the suburbs like Covington where we're at. And I had my conversation with my son saying,
okay,
you don't have to play sports. You get to play sports. All them kids,
yes,
not so much a privilege, but we're paying for you. It's not like when we were a kid, you're not on scholarship and just playing city ball and you're at the community center, so you get to play. Son, you don't have that drive to play basketball. You go outside and play when you want to, and you've got your own court. You don't have to ride your bike to a school and walk back to go play basketball. You just go outside and shoot it. You know what I mean? And it was just trying to get him to understand what the real world is, I guess.
It's interesting. I have an athlete. He was starting to struggle socially at school. Part of it was him being in a new environment where he was a similar situation to what you were talking about. He was at Jefferson High School last year as a freshman in inner city Portland. And for the most part, it's a lot of black athletes over there, black student, probably 70, 80% African-American student population, and he transferred to Columbia River, which is probably like 99.9%, white kids. It might be a handful of black kids, but he was starting to struggle, one, because he hit puberty. He's 16 years old. So now he's starting to get distracted by the females. But I told him, it's like, you're smart. You're in pre-calculus as a sophomore. He's great at math. I'm like, for you to be doing average in calculus, like, you have to be trying hard to do average, because I know you're better than that. Now, if you're telling me you don't want to play sports anymore, just go to school. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no pressure there, but if you're going to do both, because it had came back to his time management with him going to practice, doing the training, and then you got to come home and do homework, or you have to do the homework in between school and practice. And he was beginning to struggle, So I just wanted to share that with you, because you reminded me of that situation.
Same thing we just talked about. What I was talking to my kid, we finished the whole athlete idea. How are you getting better, right? And I said, "Are you training in the morning?" He said, "No, I go to practice." So what's that mean? You know what I mean? Everybody go to practice.
Right.
You got a dad who's coached at Kentwood, coached at Highline, coached at Foster, played 10 years in semi-pro, played every position on the football field. You don't ask for no help, so I don't make you get no help.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, everybody goes to practice, but everybody has trainers. Everybody has groups that they go train with, and some dudes still don't make it.
So if you ain't gonna get these books right, you definitely obviously ain't getting on the field, and then you're the mean guy and you're the bad guy. You know how that goes.
Yeah, how long have you been reffing high school games?
This will be my
in
second
Washington,
year.
Duante?
Last year was my first actual year reffing. I've done city ball. I got my promotion and all that, so I'm A2 or whatever the system is. But I've coached at the high school level for 6 years. 2 at Kentwood, 2 at Highline,
okay,
and 1 at Foster. So 5 years, and 1 at Foster.
Yeah, is there a brother that coaches at Kentwood?
Mike Bush got the head job.
Is it? Yeah. I met him about, I want to say 2 years ago at one of the Barton football quarterback academies up there. Real good dude, man. He was a pleasure to work around for, those couple of days up there.
You want to talk about a situation, he's trying to change a 79, 80% white community to be okay with having a black head coach. That's he's got his work cut out.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, man, moving on, in terms of procrastination, let's talk about your son. When you find him procrastinating, how do you motivate him to take action? It might be a chore, it might be, training on his own. It could be even getting a homework assignment done, or a class project. What things would you share with our audience out there of other parents to overcome procrastination, or how you instill, in your sons and your daughters to overcome that and take action?
Man, but it's all going to sound the same. We do it with them. We give them an outline and a map with a process for completion. And that's the best way I can put it to you.
I certainly understand that, but it's something that and I think that's an awesome answer. So, let our audience know that one more time.
I always love to tell stories. I'm a salesman. I feel like stories will sell this to them. I met my black family about 3 or 4 years ago. And when I say my black family, I literally mean my black family. My dad's the only living member we have out here, other than me, and then my little brothers. So I'd never met I'd never heard any of our historical struggle. Does that make any sense? Like, if you're from Seattle, you're from Portland, we don't really have that civil rights movement that LA had, and my family's from Indiana, you know what I mean? So
yes, I have family from Illinois,
so I understand. So I hadn't heard this till I was about 33 years old. And so my Uncle Raymond said when he moved out here, he was the first one to leave. And so he knew what cities to stop at and where you could stay at, because this is back in the day where, you know what I mean? And it wasn't okay. And so it's the same thing I'm trying to do with my sons, is give them that guiding story. This is where you can be at. This is where you not can be at, and I've been here. I showed my dad. The funniest thing is your kids won't believe you're the athlete you say they are unless they've seen you, right? And
what's interesting, man. I don't want to cut you off, but when I was at Portland State, I was taking some electives, African American studies, and one of the classes was on Oregon African American history. And it's well documented that you have more of an African American population in Seattle than you do Oregon, because when people were coming up from the South, you could own property and you could own businesses in Washington before you could in Oregon.
That's why my uncle was the only one out here, because he came last. And you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? Knowing that navigation, knowing that process, knowing how to get to A to B. And with our children, it's got to be the same way. And I don't always just talk about my kids because I coach and I ref 2 different sports. And I've been coaching at, Covington for 6 years now. And I've coached 8 teams. I got 8 plaques on the wall. You know what I mean? But in dealing with other coaches, but it's instilling.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. We're on the football field, right, Coach? And Johnny's in 6th grade, even 8th grade or less. And he's getting dominated by 95, right? And Coach says, God damn it, Johnny, you got to block 95. Right? Well, what do you think Johnny's been trying to fucking do? You want to give him more than that? What do you want? You know what I mean? Like, no shit, Coach. He's been trying. Do you want him to chop block him? Do you want him to drive to the left? What do you want him to do? And I know that you may laugh, and I hope you're laughing for the right reason, but we simplify our instructions to our kids and our athletes so much that we really don't teach them what they need to do. And it's the same thing with your kids. What do we don't really whip my older 2 kids no more. After 5, 6, I mean, you got to swat for each age you were. I'm not swatting you on your butt 9 times. That hurts my hand. I can't swat you on the butt 13 times without hurting my hand. You know what I mean? So that's not the answer. We take away the electronics, don't get me wrong. And, right now my son's got 2 Ds, I heard. So he's not going to football workouts. And I remember one of his coaches was a friend. We had whatever issues. But I had messaged him one day. I was like, yeah, Jaden won't be there for the next 2 weeks. And he called me joking. He's like, yeah, I appreciate you texting me that as a coach. I said, I didn't text you that because you were his coach. I texted you that because I was his friend. I don't care about telling his coach that. He's just not there. If his coach cares, his coach will call me. It's just different. I don't think people get that anymore.
You're hitting on something that I've been stressing for like the last 5 or 6 years, where, I always encourage, if I'm training athletes, that's my background, strength and speed. In the last couple of years, I got into some coaching over at Jefferson High School and coaching 7-on-7 teams in the Portland area. But I always encourage parents to get to know the coaches. And I always encourage coaches to get to know the parents, where we have this dialogue between athlete parent, athlete coach, and parent athlete. So then, we're all on the same page. And it sounds like he's an illustration of somebody that didn't do that.
As a, not so much didn't do it, but he just took it more as a, so since we're buddies, I'm glad you messaged me that. And it was I didn't message you that because you were my coach. I messaged you that because you're my friend. If you weren't my friend, you wouldn't have got that message. You know what I mean? And he was like, oh, you're a jerk for that. I was like, you don't get what I'm saying. You don't get it, And then I had a follow-up conversation with that same individual where we got in something heated. And he's like, you need to give me my feedback on the side. I said, I give you your feedback in front of everybody, just like I do everybody else. Well, that's embarrassing me. I said, how's it embarrassing you? Nobody's perfect. Shit, I'm not perfect. But I also know that I need to give you the same training I give him. And I said, when you coach, do you pull kids aside and tell them what they need to know? He said, yeah. I said, that's not good. And he said, well, you're just telling me I'm a bad coach. I said, I didn't say you were a bad coach. I just said that wasn't good. What if my son needs to hear something I'm telling Xavier, but I don't tell it to him because I only think Xavier needs to hear it? Who benefits? Because what if Xavier's not even listening? So nobody might. Only one of them. Hey, listen.
True.
There's no guarantee Xavier's even listening either. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's different. If you looked at my pictures on my teams, especially my son's team, I think this is our 4th or 5th year. I have 5 or 6 or 7 of the same kids on every team. Our first year, I want to say we went 2-6. Okay. Our second year, we went 0-8 because we were all 5th graders and 5th, 6th. Last year, we went 8-0. Same kid. This year, we're struggling. We're struggling because we're a seventh grade team and 7-8, right? Mm-hmm. But we've lost all our games by a combined 12 points in 4 games.
But it just sounds like you've taken the time to invest in them, their long-term athletic development, but also them as people on the social side. And I think that's where globally us as coaches, we get it twisted, and we get it wrong, and we make each other look bad when we don't invest in the kids from a social standpoint and just how they are as people.
I'm a ref, right? I've probably ref 100 games this year, right? And if you include basketball, another 50. And the ones I've coached, I'm about 200 games this year, and I spent so much time trying to just talk to kids and talking to them, hey, good shot, and this, that, and the other. And tell, why are you yelling for a call, coach? It ain't going to change nothing. But you're teaching your kids it's okay to yell at a ref. Why are you people in the stands yelling at the score lady? I told her I'm going to get it fixed, but you don't need to yell at her. That's somebody's wife. That's an adult. We're in 7th grade basketball. I agree. Even if you lose by 2, guess what? In 40 years, you're going to remember this damn game? No, shut the hell up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. And we had a game this Saturday where me and the head coach, he's my first year, we went 3 and whatever. His son asked him to coach, so the star player went with him. I don't care, right? But they won a couple more games this year. They're kind of giving it to us a little bit. Last year, I told you we went 8-0, so he ain't got nothing to say. I mean, that's the ego coming out. But, it is what it is. But we lost the game, and the whole time me and him are having fun, and I'm making fun when he's saying stuff, and we're joking and laughing. And even his parents were laughing at some of the things I said. Why isn't every game like that?
Right. I think we get too ego driven, and it's like you said before, in the wins and losses versus just having fun and being concerned with the development of the kids. And that's what this conversation is about, man, is just to share information, experience, and create a better dialogue so we can better help our student athletes, man. So I really appreciate you coming on, man. Would you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience? I know it's a little late right now, but just tell them who you are, kind of what you do, man.
Mostly a youth basketball coach. I've been a high school football coach. I'm a current high school football referee. I'm also a little league basketball referee. I coach 4 teams. I've got 5 children. I'm coaching all 4 of them. The funniest part is all 4 of my children are girls. I have a stepson who I'm coaching as well. So I coach 3 girls basketball teams, one of which was just co-ed because it's kindergarten, and then a 7th, 8th grade boys basketball team. I have a master's athletic admin. I teach at Green River. I've got a ton of background in sports myself. I've played 10 years at semi-pro, almost walked on a Green River, and then originally went to Morehouse College out of school for academic scholarship as a junior, not a senior, so graduated a year early. I've had a path that everybody knows. You've got this shining bright light, and you get to college and you want to party and have fun instead of take life seriously. So I ended up getting a master's at 33 and a half instead of at 23 when I should have, if you know what I mean. But we all have our different paths, you know what I mean? And I'm on the path of really changing stuff. I mean, the funny parts, there's that commercial with the referee at dinner, and it says, if you're a referee, you over-explain things. Well, shit. I mean, it kind of answers itself. There I am. There I am an answer, right? But it also says something else. I don't really get in fights on the football field. I don't do all that. If you see me ref the Barton thing last year, I'm pretty sure. And I'm all about discipline. I don't do the jaw jack, we're blowing them out 50-0, and you're talking about beating up somebody you were supposed to beat up. Now go blow out them dudes from Cali over there 50-0 and talk that same stuff. But you ain't talking like that when you play them dudes from Cali, so shut up. And I played on CAY back and went to nationals and took 16th after they took 4th, and I played with the Joey Thomases, and I played with the Paul Arnolds, and I played with the Jamal Crawfords, and Nate Robinson's our little homie, if you know what I mean. And Luke Ridnour was on our AAU team because I'm class of 99, you know what I mean? So I've played with a different level athlete. It's just when you graduated a junior and you go for academics, it's a different path. I was the real version of student athlete. I was what you're talking about. I was a 3 or 4 star guy with a 3.6 GPA, graduated a year early. I was everything you could ask for out of an athlete. I just got out of school and got to Morehouse and fell into the party scene. And unfortunately, the party scene is at high school now. You know what I
It
mean?
is.
I've seen some of the worst. I've seen stuff in the high school locker rooms that I didn't even see until I got to college.
I agree. I agree. You know, I like to stay in tune with the athletes. I still listen to hip hop, so you know they're listening to. There's some of the things that I love hip hop, but I don't condone everything that's talked about,
Pardon
especially
my
with the
French.
partying and
Hold
the
on. Pardon my French, but
opioids
fuck
and the
hip hop.
drugs.
I got 4 daughters. I
Yeah,
can't do hip hop. I can't. I can't even listen to my stuff, which ain't
yeah,
that bad. But I started listening to some of their stuff, and I can't. It's misogynistic.
yeah.
It's
It's completely
gangbang this,
different.
gangbang that, misogynistic, chauvinistic. I mean, what are we doing?
I wanted to ask you, man, we've been talking about your son a lot, and I want to stay right there, even with your daughters, because I'm sure you looked at this. How do you use reflective thinking to support, their achievement and well-being? How do you
Man,
what strategies do you and your wife use, to get
again,
the
I'm gonna
kids
tell
to
you, I'm gonna
think
sound
about
like a
their
broken record,
actions?
but I have them give me the answers. There's gonna be a lecture, but we're gonna talk about your end game and what do you want. My oldest daughter's 9. She's having kind of weight issues. She's never been an athlete before. She's been on a soccer team and been that kid that's like butterfly. Oh, the ball's here. Okay, I'll kick it. And I don't make my kids play sports; they play. And so she wasn't going to play soccer this year, but she was going to run track. And she fell in love with basketball because it's something she liked. You know what I mean? But with her, I had to be honest with you. You're
Okay.
117 pounds at 9 years old, Nevaeh. That's not really healthy. Do you like that? Do you like not being able to run? She's like, no, I want to be more active. And asking her about, as a girl, we know you don't feel comfortable and you're pulling on your clothes. How does that make you feel? And her telling me, okay, well, if you don't want to continue to gain weight and keep getting bigger, you got to get active, girl. So what, you know what I mean? Like putting it on her. My 6-year
Mm-hmm.
old, she's mean. Not like mean, but you know what I mean. But she's a manipulative, mean girl.
Okay.
If you raise your kids and you got more than one, you know what they're like. If you ain't being honest with yourself, that's just you. But you know what I mean? Like I say, ain't everybody made for college. Some people are made for
Right.
McDonald's. You know what I mean? I didn't. Hey, I didn't go to Jaden's teachers ask her
Sometimes.
why he didn't get forced. But with Nevaeh, I ask him why she don't get forced because I know she should be getting them. You know what I mean? So it's same thing as being an athlete. You know what I mean? It's not always about athletics, like you said, but same idea. Why isn't Johnny playing football? He's dunking in his rec league. Why is you know what I mean? Or dunk? You get what I'm saying? So with my
Yeah.
daughter, she's extremely smart. She's all those things, but socially, she's inept. She's had younger siblings. Well, the good news is basketball's actually gotten her social. Um, 'cause she
That's one of the reasons. That is one of my prime reasons why almost all kids should play sports,
hello.
because it helps
So
them
now that
develop
her
socially.
friends are 3rd and 4th graders, she's been playing basketball against her classmates at recess instead of going and playing with her sister and the kindergartners and 1st graders because she, you get what I mean? And it's
Awesome.
totally changed her in class. Now, it's not
Yeah.
no great parenting, but it also derives from, hey, you're going to try to play basketball, and Dad's going to be your coach. You sure you want that? Dad's going to work. I'll try. And I mean, her first practice, she was crying after practice and mad and was telling her mom, she's Dad's mean, and I wasn't the only one not running and all this stuff. Right? But it's not like
Yeah.
I'm yelling at her anymore. I know you're jogging.
Right.
Let's go, Nevaeh. All right, you want to walk? We'll run again on the line. Let's go, girls. Yeah, it's 3rd and 4th grade basketball. Need to be in shape. What, you going to be mad at me because I'm getting your kid in shape? No. Which goes back to me keep getting the same kids because I build that rapport. My first phone call with parents is the same thing, and maybe that's something that parents need to start asking for. Because if you play on my team, my phone call goes like this. I don't care if we go 0-8 or 8-0 as long as every kid on the team gets better. My job is not to get wins. My job is to get your kids better. I will have different expectations of what getting better is for each kid, but overall, they will be disciplined, they will work hard, and they will have a better attitude than when I got them.
Yeah. What would you say? What are your student athletes' barriers and limitations?
All my children right now are ADD or HD, except for my youngest one. Now, not to where they're totally bad, but they're on some sort of medication to help them with their focus, or however you want to put it, and that's a barrier, for my son. It's follow through, he's got an IEP. And for me, I feel like that's a barrier and a limitation on him. And I told him, there's no reason why you can't turn your work in on time. You can be ADHD all you want, but you're on pills for that. So I still need you to turn your work in. You know what I mean? You get to college, there's no IEP. You can get test accommodations. Again, I work at the school, so I get these from my students every time. And hey, Johnny needs to sit up front. And you need to make sure that Johnny gets an audio and a visual reminder on all this stuff, right? And Johnny needs this, or Jimmy needs that. But it's not you get to turn your work in late. So a lot of it, for me, is just being honest, is I feel like, these kids are being set up for failure with these IEPs a lot of times. And I don't mean all of them.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Duante, because you have I've worked with an ADHD athlete, but you have kids that are ADHD. What strategies would you tell other parents who might even be scared to talk about this subject? What strategy?
No, I'm talking,
and that's just me talking.
No, they are
I could be
why
wrong.
Be scared? Why not be honest with you? Yeah, my kid's taking some Adderall. Yeah. I got another kid on something else. The worst thing that happens is I got two kids that I know I'm coaching that got issues, and didn't nobody tell me nothing. So why aren't you talking about it? So you get what I'm... Hello?
Yes.
I'm coaching two kindergarten kids that got some issues. I got one of them throwing up gang signs and doing hand stuff to calm down. I know he's got some major issues. I've had some. I know what that training comes from, if you know what I mean. So just be real with me. Yeah. I ain't perfect.
Right.
I've come from the bottom up. You get what I'm saying? I'm not supposed to be here at my age if I told you my story.
I was working with an ADHD athlete. He's from an affluent family. He's 13 years old. Brother at the time was a year older than him. So you got the older brother's in 9th grade, the other kid's in 8th grade. He's 5'6". The other brother that's 1 year apart, he's like 6'1", Adonis type on his way. But this kid, from what I understood, what I got from the parents was that he really liked me. And what I did was I didn't know anything about training ADHD kids. I just took a chance and I trained them. In a sense, I treated them like everybody else, but I also had to go back and do my homework, knowing that sometimes he has to stay moving, or sometimes he might get distracted by the littlest things. And for me, it developed my patience as a coach. He made me a much better coach because I learned how to be patient and I learned how to really observe them. You know what I mean? And for me, that was an incredible experience.
Eli, I need you to keep go ahead. Answer yourself. Eli, come on, buddy, focus. And I got 9 other. This is my kindergarten team, mind you. So I got 9 other little kids, but it's knowing those signals and knowing those issues. All right, we're not listening. Let's run. Well, you're punishing him? No, I'm not really punishing him. I'm also getting him to focus. Because if he's running and I get his heart rate up, he'll listen to me more. And for most of these kids, they don't like running. So it's not so much a consequence as it is a reminder, hey, what's up? And in your case, that's exactly what it is. We're checking up with Jaden. Hey, man, you got to have a plan. You got to come home and write down what you're missing and do it in that order. We just talked to him yesterday about you can't say I'm doing some of this and then doing some of that and then doing some of this. How will anything get done? And then again, having them give you your answers. My wife asked him, hey, so if I start Gianna's bath and then I go start vacuuming downstairs and then I kind of start dinner and then I go do this and then I go do that, will I get anything done? He's like, no. I said, well, that's what you're doing with your homework. You're doing a whole lot of work, but you ain't getting nothing done. And so I don't know why special needs, homosexuality, race, all these taboo issues we don't talk about. But if you don't talk about them, how are you handling them?
Before we close out, Duante, is there anything else that you would want to say to my audience out there? Anything you would want to say, anything that you would want to teach, or any other experience that you would like to share? I feel like this has been an incredible interview with some awesome insight into it.
My biggest thing is, I gotta I'm a bear and I'm angry, but there's two things I got a special spot for. Those are older people and special needs. And you want to teach your kids about humility, and you want to teach them a life lesson, have them working with people with special needs and people that are elderly. Those people need love, but they also got a ton of love to give. And the walls and the barriers you can break down with a child who's having to work with another child with special needs is huge. The barriers and walls you can crush with a 16-year-old kid who thinks he's tougher than shit, but he's hanging out with a Vietnam vet or a civil rights vet or some sort of mentor that can tell him about how life really is, and he ain't got to hear it from you, but he gonna respect the 80-year-old man taking the time to tell him. You can sit there and play dominoes, you can play spades, you can do all these things with older people. You can do them with special needs people. And you said the one thing I love to hear the most. And I remember Carlos Mencia joked about it, and I had it happen to me. I used to be a paraeducator for BD kids. And I had a kid that had TBI growing up and then got hit by a truck at 35 miles an hour. The kid's bad. I seen him as an adult a couple of years ago. He's not a good individual, you know what I mean? He's went the wrong way on his road, right? And it's not his fault either. But I can remember him asking me one day, Mr. Barnett, you joke with everybody else and have a good time and you guys laugh, but you don't ever joke with me. Damn. So I am treating you differently. Why am I treating you differently? Well, because you're special needs and you're 13. I know you got TBI. But you can still laugh at a joke, so I guess I can make fun of you that on Monday you didn't get your homework done and make it a joke instead of be like, come on, Delane. I can say, hey, man, you didn't get that done. Don't lie to me. I can call you on your bullshit just like I call everybody else on their bullshit. I got to treat you just like I treat everybody else, because when you see me with everybody else, you're going to know what we have isn't real.
Well, we're going to close out right here, man. I want to, ladies and gentlemen, we've been listening to Duante Barnett. This has been some great insight. I hopefully this stimulates some more conversation. Duante, I want to let you know, man, please connect me with any other parents or coaches with young student athletes that would be a great benefit to the show. I've interviewed some incredible people throughout the last year and a half, but one of the avenues that I'm starting to veer towards is interviewing more parents. And the reason why I say that is, in my opinion, 9 times out of 10, the parent is the first coach of the student athlete in the household. And that's what I'm looking to explore and see where this goes. And I feel really good about this. You're actually the second parent that I've interviewed since I put this, since I put the question out over Facebook. And these interviews, they'll come out in about the next 2 to 3 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're liking this show, head on over to patreon.com/sports mastery. There you can learn more about the mission of Sports Mastery. You can learn more about our goals for the podcast, and you can also see our rewards for being a supporter of the podcast. Peace and blessings, and thank you for listening.